Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dinda Surya Utami. I'm from SIKI. My NPM 1911-0464. In this video, I want to explain about my proposal. My proposal title is an analysis of the translation containing sexist language in English subtitles in the film series Imperfect the series. So the first one is background of the problems. Language discrimination occurs in almost all patriarchal languages, putting women in a quandary because they experience language discrimination in two ways: how they are taught to speak and how language treats women. The notion that men and women are treated differently by language is not new. Feminists have long expressed concern about how women are represented in language. According to Penelope in 1990, documented an early challenge to sexist language from St. Hildegarde of Bingen, who attempted to construct a non-sexist language alternative in the 11th century. Lanarako and Charis Kramarae in 1990 edited an anthology of articles from the Revolution, a radical American women rights publication that began in 1868 to 1871. They discovered the significant portion of the Revolution writing drew attention to what I would consider sexist language. The use of term of endearment when addressing women rather than men was discussed in the Revolution, as well as men renaming of women after marriage. Sexist language as an expression of social interaction is a phenomenon that contributes to a gender gaps. According to Mills in 1995, sexist language is the categorization of fact that extends social concept of men and women into the non-human world, inscribing a principle of gender roles and identified in the language itself. Also, according to Wijayanto in 2006, he also stated that a sexist language refers to gender and is used at the linguistic level, such as words, morphemes, phrase, or a sentence. Language can be an attitude. Sexist stereotypes are formed on the basis of gender differences rather than individual abilities. The language that is sexist encodes stereotypical attitude towards men and women. So in general, the sexist language study is concerned with how language expresses positive and negative stereotypes of men and women. Sexist language in practice focus on how it expresses negative stereotypes of a women. Concern about the impact of sexist language stem from the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which states that there is a close relationship between language and the culture of speaker of that language. The hypothesis goes on to say that a language has a direct impact on the behavior of the cultural community in a question. Language and culture are inextricably linked with meaning expressed by language influencing reality, concept, and point of view. It's according to Park and Robertson in 1998. The argument of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis were eventually used by feminists to campaign against sexist language and seek more natural languages. The portrayal of women in books, film, and media has long been a source of concern for feminists in literary and film studies. Researchers will look at the English translation of the film series, Imperfect the series in this study. The researchers tries to find out how the film's sexist language is represented in the English translation. And my research employs Sarah Mills' critical discourse analysis to analyze the translation result. Sarah Mills is a feminist who created a critical discourse analysis to investigate how women are treated unfairly in the text. According to Mills in 2008, sexism can be seen in two ways during the process of delivering sexism, namely directly and indirectly. In this opinion, direct sexism is communicated through the stereotyping, discrimination based on the institutional influence and the use of their own language. Meanwhile, it is done indirectly through a humor, estimation, conveying contradictory message, script or metaphor, and equivalent androcentric perspective. This allows for the possibility that the model of delivering has negative perceptual expression, that is, the expression are producing complementary result. The translation is an activity of transferring the message or intent from one language into another language. And according to Cuthbert in 1965, he defines the translation as the substitution of textual material in one language or source language for equivalent textual material in another language or a target language. And also according to Larson in 1984, the meaning of the source language is transferred into the receptor language during a translation. This is accomplished by using semantic structure to transition from the first language's forms to the second language forms. It is the meaning that it is meaning that is being transferred and must be kept constant, and as a meaning is the most important variable in the translation process. The source form contains the meaning encoded and recorded in the search wording that should be re-expressed and preserved in the target forms. To put it another way, only the forms changes. This interpretation should then be transferred, encoded, and recorded in the new target wordings. The translation in the film series Imperfect the series is the forms of subtitles. Subtitles are defined as a word shown at the bottom of a film or television image to explain what is being said. It's according to Cambridge Dictionaries Online. Translation according to Gottlieb is a dysemiotic translation in polysemiotic media. It's including the film, TV, video, and DVD. In the forms of one or more lines of the written text presented on the screen in synchron with the original dialogue. Linguistically, we can distinguish two types of subtitle. There are intralingual subtitling. The subtitles are transcription of the spoken words rather than a translation of the movie, changing mode but not language. This is done for people who are deaf or learning a foreign language. For the second, interlingual subtitling. Subtitles are translation of spoken words that charge both mode and language. Research on the translation of sexist language has been carried out by several researchers, including Muhammad Apriyanto and Yudi Rahman in 2022. They are analyzing the result of the translation of sexism translated by an unofficial translator named Pain Akatsuki in the villain Red Sparrow. And the second, Maria Dita, M.R. Nababan, and Riyadi in 2019, they are identified the translation technique used by the translator in the translating expression containing sexist attitude in the novel Ronggeng Duku Parut. And the last is Risa, Budi Nurianta, and Suhartono in 2020. They are trying to find sexist language in the speech of female speakers through representation, interpretation, and forms of discrimination in the text analysis. The three studies are Indonesian language studies. Meanwhile, in my study, I will analyze how the sexist language spoken by the character in the movie series Imperfect the Series is represented in English translation in the forms of subtitle. Whether the utterance will be represented the same as a dialect in Indonesian, or will use a choice of words or phrase, more positive and neutral sentence without gender stereotypes. The Imperfect series itself is an original Indonesian series from the WeTV streaming service application. The subtitle feature is also original from its own platforms, making it the subtitles making a user can be easier to enjoy the movie. The results of this study are expected to increase awareness of gender stereotypes. Sexism in the forms of words can be reduced by shifting the meaning to be more positive or neutral. And according to the explanation above, the researcher wished to conduct research titled An Analysis of the Translation Containing Sexist Language in the English Subtitles in the Film Series Imperfect the Series. And the next is about focus and subfocus of the research. Based on the background of the problem that I told before, my research focus and limited the research on the analysis of sexist language contained in subtitles in the film series Imperfect the Series. And for the scope of the research, the first one, the subject of the research, it will be the film series Imperfect the Series. And for the object of the research, it will be analyzing translation containing sexist language in English subtitles in the film series Imperfect the series. For the next is formulation of the problems. Based on the research background that I described before, the formulation of the problem is how sexist language is represented in English subtitles in the film series Imperfect the series. And for the objective of the research, the purpose of this study or this research is to find out how sexist language in the film series Imperfect the series is represented in English subtitles. And the next is significance of the research. These research findings are expected to be a benefit and contribute to readers and also for the next researcher. For the readers, it is hoped that this research can provide information for readers about sexist language and gender stereotypes and make the reader be more aware of its use. And the second, for the next researchers, it is hoped that this research might be used as a reference by the next researcher who might discuss the same types of the research. Okay, for the next is a relevant research. The first one, there is Muhammad Aprianto and Yudi Rahman in 2022 in their research entitled Terjemahan Analisis Ujaran Seksisme dan Pelecehan Seksual dalam Subtitle Bahasa Indonesia di dalam film berjudul Red Sparrow. This research focused on the analyze sexist and sexual harassment speech in the translation result of subtitles conducted by Pen Akatsuki as an unofficial translator. And the result from this study found data that from 20 dialects there are 13 speech containing sexist and sexual harassment to all women who works as an agent sparrow in the movie entitled Red Sparrow. And the second is research from Maria Dita, M.R. Nababan, and also Riyadi in 2019 in their research entitled Analisis Perbandingan Terjemahan, ungkapan yang mengandung sikap seksis antara tokoh laki-laki dan perempuan dalam novel Ronggeng Duku Paru. Their research focus on identifying the translation technique when translating expression with sexist attitude, and also to find a translation shift that occur as a result of the translation technique usage. Taxonomy analysis, componential analysis, and cultural values were used to examine the data. According to the study findings, there are 14 translation techniques found for female character, while 12 techniques are used to translate sayings on a male character. A translation shift was caused by discursive creation and transposition. And the last researcher is from Risa, Budi Nurianta, and Suhartono in 2020 in their research entitled Sexist Language in the Speech of Muslim Female Preachers, Critical Discourse Analysis. Their research focused to find sexist language in the speech of female preachers through representation, interpretation, and also forms of discrimination in the text. According to the study findings, females express more sexism when speaking to people of the same gender than when speaking to people of different gender. The impact on the use of vocabularies that listens gender identity by using the terms mark, unmarked, and semantic derogation stems from this phenomenon. There are other relationships with grammar in intentionally modalities that use declarative, imperative, and interrogative sentence types. Epistemic, deontic, dynamic. This relationship also discuss the benefit of meaning of mentioning text in the text structures through a relationship, confession, structuring, and also ordering a text. For the next is research method that I use in analyzing this research. This is a qualitative research with descriptive qualitative method was used in this study. According to Sugiono in 2010, qualitative research is a descriptive. It means that the information gathered was the forms of words rather than numbers. Meanwhile, according to Molum in 2005, qualitative research aims to understand phenomena about what research subjects experience as a whole, such as behavior, perception, motivation, action, and so on, by describing them in the forms of words and language in a natural context using various natural methods. In qualitative research, questions clearly describe and attempt to address questions such as what, how, to what extent, and in what way. According to Onwe, Buzzi, and Lech in 2006. This enable the collection of data from various sources. This prevented data restriction while providing in-depth information and a better understanding of the phenomenon in a subjective manner. And in analyzing the data, I use the critical discourse analysis theory by Sarah Mills. Sarah Mills' theory is used because it is linked to a sexist language, either directly or indirectly through the word's choice or metaphor. Sexist language is classified into 6 types: generic, derivative, non-parallel terms that indicate semantic degeneration, sexism in proverbs, and also sexism in a swear word. Okay, that's all from my explanation about my proposal. I'm so sorry if my explanation not clear enough. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.